Hello, and welcome to West Country Wanderings. I'm Paul, and recently I did my monthly vlog from the little Oxfordshire village of Minster Lovell. Before I headed home, I popped into the Cotswold town of Witney and visited the Blanket Hall, which has a small museum telling you all about the story of Witney Blankets. Henry of Blow, who was grandson of William the Conqueror, built himself a splendid house in Witney, from where he could direct his large estates and his sheep flocks. Henry exported much of his wool to Flanders, now Belgium, but he established weaving as an important trade in the town. Over the following centuries, the number of sheep around Witney and the importance of the weaving trade kept growing. Witney wove mostly heavily well-milled cloths, usually used for the making of coats. Witney also wove wagon covers and tilt cloths, which were used to cover cargo on barges on the canals. By the 17th century, Witney was specialising in the weaving of blankets. In 1677, Dr. Robert Plot wrote that there were 150 looms in the town, and that trades like sorting, scouring, spinning, weaving and finishing provided work for well over 3,000 people. Carts were trundling to London carrying Witney blankets for sale to merchants at Blackwell Hall. The blankets were highly regarded and started being exported to North America through Hudson's Bay Trading Company. Witney succeeded in making a colour-fast dye. In 1711, Queen Anne granted the newly formed Company of Witney Blanket Makers complete jurisdiction, which gave it powers to regulate activities of all the weavers. On the 12th of August 1720, 42 members signed an agreement to build a hall for the weighing of blankets for the company. By the end of 1721, the blanket hall was complete. You may be thinking, what is a Witney blanket? Well, it means different things to different people, aside from the fact it was a blanket made in Witney. Later in the 1950s, the Encyclopaedia Britannica defined it as the raised blankets of the Witney type, in which a soft spun yarn and long fibred weft is employed. In the finishing processes of the Witney blanket, the fibres are raised to form a fleecy pile on the surface, so retaining its warmish properties. Sadly, a company called Early's closed the last blanket mill in Witney in 2002. However, there are still some shops around the town that supply traditional blankets, although they are no longer made in Witney itself. There are several reasons why Witney blankets have declined. Since the 1960s, there has been a huge rise in the popularity of duvets, and rarely are blankets put on beds instead of duvets these days, except to provide additional warmth. Our houses and homes have become warmer with the introduction of central heating, also since the 1960s. Another major factor is labour has become cheaper overseas. And finally, the value of land surrounding the prosperous Cotswold and Oxfordshire town of Witney has been more in use for housing. Some of the surviving mills have been restored and converted into homes and apartments. Thank you for watching West Country Wanderings today. Until next time, goodbye, and hope to see you on the channel soon.